Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today's webinar, we're going to discuss the top tips to help your child ease into the new school year ahead. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to do some introductions. We have two experts on our panel today that are going to share their top tips. I'll give you a brief overview into Learnfully and our services. And we'll talk about those tips and the services to follow. If we have time, we will have a Q&A, a live Q&A. But feel free to drop your questions in the chat regardless, so that if we run out of time, we can always respond back to you and get those answers that you need and deserve. I am Jess Corinne. I am Head of Educational Services for Learnfully. I started my career as a K-1 classroom teacher, super eager and excited to dive into the classroom. Quickly, I realized that I felt as if I was doing a disservice to my students. They all had so many different needs, and I just didn't feel like I was equipped to personalize implementation. So I moved back home and joined forces with Linda Mood Bell, where I truly feel as if I refined the art of multisensory evidence-based instruction, and then opened a private practice. After about 10 years of working with Linda Mood Bell, I served the local community in the Bay Area. I partnered with several different schools. I consulted with a pediatrician's practice and served learners directly for a number of years using a multiplicity of programs. So I got training in Orton Gillingham, Wilson Reading System, social thinking, making math real, and the like, so that I could truly feel as if I was differentiating services for my students. And that's what brought me to Learnfully. I am so happy to be the head of ed and excited to be able to reach many more learners across the country and the globe. So first and foremost, we have Kendra. If you feel free to introduce yourself.
Yep, so I'm Kendra Demler. I'm a parent who I believe I received a crash course in the whole process of navigating the system to try and get support for my son, who has had numerous challenges. We went up against a lot of challenges against various schools. And finally, after a lot of interesting stories and a lot of meetings, we finally have the support that we need and feel that we're on track. And I'm happy to be here and share what I can that might help others.
We are so happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank
I appreciate
you
you being here. And Alexis, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexis Takagi. I'm an educational specialist at Learnfully, and I'm also a graduate student at Santa Clara University School of Education and Counseling Psychology, studying social justice leadership in K-12 and higher ed. And I'm so happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. Alexis is one of our stellar specialists, and she sees quite a few students who are neurodivergent and have a diversity of needs. So we are proud to have you as part of our team. All right, at Learnfully, we always start with why, and our why is that every child deserves the right to realize and reach their potential, ultimately to learn fully. We know all learners learn differently, and so through individualization and personalization, it's imperative that they receive the support that they need and deserve. Learnfully is a personalized platform of a highly curated network of educational specialists with varying degrees of certification and credentialing. We have a vast array of programs that we can offer our students through educational therapy and executive functioning coaching, including Linda Mood Bell, Orton Gillingham, Wilson Reading System, social thinking, Step Up to Writing, you name it. And if we receive a referral for a learner who needs a specific program and we don't currently offer it through our network, we will find it. We will pound the pavement and ensure that our learners get what they deserve. We have an ever-growing content library to ensure that our learners receive the reinforcement in between sessions to really maintain that momentum and expedite progress as a result. And we make sure that our caregivers, the ecosystem of support that surrounds our learners as a center of our model, have proactive and transparent communication in place. So we provide weekly session notes, we provide monthly progress update meetings, we welcome and strongly encourage collaboration in the classroom, attending parent-teacher conferences, and any way that we can really support those layers of the learner in every different angle to ensure that they really feel successful and confident and can lean in order to see themselves thrive. So why talk about back to school? Well, we've been through quite a trying 2.5 years, right? We were in a different place the last couple of years. I feel like this is a great opportunity to allow our learners the chance to ease into the school year by alleviating the anxiety that inevitably follows, when we tell our kiddos that they're going back to school soon. So they've decompressed, they've released a lot of that tension and energy over the summer, hopefully. And then when it's time to go back to school, their stress alerts spike, right? So they're triggered in terms of anxiety. And sometimes it's hard to really regulate and cope through that anxiety. So it's important that as we start moving towards back to school, I know a lot of us are already back in school, but there's quite a few who are still going back in the next couple of weeks, making sure we set our learners up for success and know that not only are we here to validate their concerns, but really support and bolster their strengths so they can lean on those and feel secure as they head back to the classroom. This stat might have changed, but about 40% of teenagers are diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. And so that's 40% of teenagers, but there's quite a few learners of all ages that may warrant or show symptoms of an anxiety disorder. And most of the time that's triggered through school anxiety or social anxiety. And those two kind of go hand in hand. So this time of year provides an optimal opportunity for us to kind of set the stage and allow them to ease into the school year by activating some of those tips and tricks that we know as parents and educators have been effective for our personal learners, but the greater good as well. So let's dive in. Each of us have our top tips that we're going to share with you, and we'll go line by line and make sure that you have the strategies in your back pocket for if you'd like to pull them out and utilize it with your own children. We're going to go ahead and start with Kendra.
Yes. So the first one, which I just can't see, the reinforcing, yes, and healthy habits, reestablishing, you're coming back from the summer. One of the first things I used to do, it's a little different now, but we always used to do a dry run on the way to school. And we used to start, if it was a new school, we'd always go and play at the playground ahead of time, because that's kind of a safe spot. It's a social spot for kids. And my son actually had told me that he was able to sort of share with others things on the playground, which was kind of a little icebreaker. I don't think the kids realized, but he could show them where the monkey bars were. And I think he felt safe knowing there was something he was familiar with. Equally as important, we did the walk or the bike ride to school, just kind of to show him where he would be dropped off, kind of where he would go after that, just to sort of set his expectations. And I think that was a really great thing for him. One of my favorite tips to share, though, is the night before. We found for a while that getting dressed in the morning became very stressful. So for the longest time, we started to do our shower, and he'd put his outfit on the night before, wake up in the morning. He's already dressed. There's no looking for socks. There's, that's kind of, we've eliminated that. And it took a huge amount of stress out of our morning routine. He could get up, have breakfast. All he had to do was, comb his hair, brush his teeth, and put his shoes on. So that is one of my all-time favorites that saved us a lot. Meeting the teachers beforehand is great. I had a school that kind of set this up ahead of time. I think our first year of kindergarten, they did a meet and greet. The kids in class got to meet each other. It was wonderful to see them do that. If your school doesn't do that, I have in the past reached out, asked for, who the teacher was going to be, asked for their contact information, emailed them, found a time where we could pop in kind of during their in-service and just say hello. They can see the classroom, again, helps them kind of see and feel secure. They know where they're going. It's again, just kind of that extra security when they're headed off, to the day in a new place by themselves. I guess we're looking at reflective discussions. I learned the hard way of asking yes and no questions about how the day was at school. Oftentimes I get phone calls, I get emails for a very long time about how the day went. So he didn't like to talk about school a lot. And what I did try and do is ask questions, so did you see anyone being kind today? And it would kind of just start to talk about things in general. We also play Uno at the table for dinner. My son is ADHD. He has a very hard time sitting still. We found that is a good way to kind of keep him at the dinner table. And then we can talk about school as well. And it kind of is an icebreaker. He's not focused on school and he might bring up something. And I could say, we'd like to validate, that sounds like it was really stressful. How did you handle that? Or how did that student do that? So, and you get really little interesting bits of information that you weren't expecting to as well. So that's just a nice thing. The other thing I would say If they don't want to talk about something that bad happened and it's something you need to talk about, I like to give them an option and say, we do have to talk about this. I understand you don't want to talk about it right now, but let me know when you're ready. We can do it before dinner, after dinner. But that way it gives him a little time, I think, to decompress and, address whatever it was that he doesn't want to talk about it. Kids, I think if they make a mistake, they have a rough day, it's not fun for them. They don't want to, I think some of them feel shame having to tell their parents about something. So it kind of is a nice way to let him decide when he's ready to talk about that. And it's, he's less defensive, he's more open. And I think it just made things a little bit easier. So, and then my last thing that I love, I think a lot of teachers recommend this to therapists, but the time timer, I was going to bring mine and I forgot. So
it's okay.
the I don't know if you guys have them, but the time timer, it's a visual clock, and you can set the red to a full hour. And that is, I think it's so nice for them to be able to visualize. I have this chunk of time for breakfast, and it's, kind of going backward, it goes down.
I love it.
See, I'm running out of time. You can use it for anything, for, the shower, dinner, reading. So that has been one of our trusted companions for years.
Yeah, no, it's life-saving I have 4 children. I should have said that earlier.
God.
And it's life-saving. But as a teacher too, it's huge because we work with quite a few students who have executive dysfunction, and being able to see the visual timer, and to each his own. There's other timers that work for other students. So being able to personalize that is important. But I really appreciate that you use that at home, because you most likely will see that at school too. And there's consistency there. And the only thing I would add about getting back into routine is, for our kiddos, we start their bedtime routine about a week in advance, just so they start getting back into what time they go to sleep, and in relation to school and their sleeping habits, get back in action. We start reducing screen time again, just the good old nitty gritty. Getting them reacclimated has been really, really helpful to us in the past. One thing I'll say that you mentioned visual routine is that we created a couple sample checklists for the morning and evening routines, because we know these can be the boiling point for some kiddos, and you don't have to use this by any means, but please know that we will include these as attachments when we follow up to the webinar with the recording, because we think that quite a few caregivers and educators alike could benefit from having some universal resources to utilize. And then, you can move these around or make it your own, or make it personalized and incorporate interest to really engage them in the process. But it's definitely a structured, systematic, and visual way that learners can see what's expected of them and feel really productive and successful once they accomplish it all. Eventually, we use this at home, and eventually they don't need it. They got it down, right? But sometimes they will need to revert back. So it's good to have it, and it's positive and colorful, and definitely something I think inspiring to use. So thank you, Kendra. We're going to move on to Alexis.
Yeah, so my first tip is to stay positive and provide reinforcement. As Jess was saying earlier, language is really important in framing a child's mindset, promoting a growth mindset, especially when you're preparing to go back to school and getting back into that routine. Words of encouragement are really powerful. They boost a child's self-esteem, self-confidence. It helps children to believe in themselves, and validates their effort and work. So example, you can say things like you can do anything you set your mind to, keep up the great work, I'm proud of you. And it's just actively acknowledging your child's progress. For example, when they finish half of a worksheet, telling them that they're doing a great job. If they haven't yet mastered a skill, tell them that they haven't mastered it yet, but they will soon, and things like that. It just really validates all the effort that they're doing at school, and to prepare their progress as they prepare for school. My next tip is to reorganize and resystematize systems. Again, we talked about that morning and evening routine, getting back into that consistency. This is all about getting your child back in the back to school mindset. And reorganizing gives them the opportunity to get excited about the new school year, to meet new people, to learn new things, and also gives them a sense of agency or choice as they prepare for the school year. So the first thing is go shopping for school supplies. We can make this a really fun activity for them. Let them choose school supplies of their favorite colors, favorite TV or movie characters on them. It also serves as a great icebreaker for other students too. And we really want school supplies to spark a sense of excitement and form a positive connection with learning. And I feel like just having them choose their notebook and things like that can get them excited. The next tip would be to clean up their study space and backpack. Before the school year, we want to designate a comfortable place for students to work that's different from other places in the house. We want to kind of remove as many distractions as possible and really like reinforce the idea like this is a place where you learn. This is a place where we study, and then other places of the house, it's where you can play and have outside time. So it's really important. And this is a great opportunity to invite your child to help clean and design their study space with things that they find like comfortable as well. And give them a sense of control over the space. And then also have your child choose their backpack or take the lead in filling up their backpack with their items, just so they are aware of like what's in their backpack. And you could also have them help pack their lunch. Again, a sense of excitement for the next day. Another part of this tip is to read stories and books about going back to school. Stories like First Day Critter Jitters or Clover Kitty Goes Back to Kindergarten. Reading those books really just set an open dialogue with your child. Concerns about going back to school, areas of excitement or nervousness, you can really just talk about those. Those books are an invitation to have those conversations that aren't really so direct as well, and also connect them with resources as well. If they're feeling nervous about like their accommodations, or if they're not going to be able to do it, you can set up accommodations at school before you send them back. And
I love that. And those books, like you said, they spark discussion. I really love the Pete the Cats and the Todd Parr books. We read them all the time at home. But also those can serve as a coping mechanism too, for, setting them in a proper mindset, helping them calm down and regulate by listening to a story. Setting up their workspace, I think, was a brilliant point, and making it comfortable and welcoming was great, because then that allows them to, again, ease into the homework process. I really love giving my kids some downtime after they come home for school and before they start homework. So practicing some mindfulness. One of my kiddos is getting into meditation even. Another one of my kiddos makes glitter jars, and he puts the glitter jars at his homework station. And so when he feels himself bubbling up, or he has a revved energy engine, he can shake the glitter jar and watch it settle down. And then once it's settled, it's like a timer. It's time to go back to work. So finding some of those strategies, like reading books in a cozy corner and quiet workspace, I think is awesome. Thank you, Alexis. I appreciate it. I only have 2 more tips for all of us, and these are true to my personality. So get bored, right? Let your kids be bored, especially those last couple weeks of summer. Like, I know we want to jam pack vacations and camps and activities and play dates, and that's all good if you do it, like, sprinkle it in, you do it intermittently. But I really like the idea of our kiddos getting bored, because not only does it allow them to be creative, be solution seekers, start using a little bit more of that conceptual imagery and imagination and executive functioning that's required in the classroom, but it also gets them kind of itchy to go back to school. So we like had screenless days for the most part in the last week of summer before they went back to school. We didn't sign them up for anything, and they were like, okay, when's the time? We're ready. Like, help us go back. So it's not the case for everybody, but it's definitely worth trying, letting them get a little bored so they can be grateful once they fill that energy cup, if you will. And then last, but definitely not least, is celebrate. Try to treat this with optimism, positivity, like you both said, and celebrate it, right? They're progressing onto a new year. It's a great opportunity to make new friends, to reestablish friendships, to rise to the occasion, to feel successful and confident. But I think oftentimes we celebrate the end of the year because of, rightfully so, all the great effort they put into it. But yet we forget sometimes how easy it is to also celebrate the beginning of a new year. They've made it through the summer, they're advancing, it's super exciting, and try to add a little flair to those last couple days of summer by planning an exciting activity or something with their friends to get them pumped and juiced to return to the classroom. So those were our top 10 tips for how to ease back into the classroom. If you still feel as if your learner is facing challenges and struggling with any layer of need, whether it be academic, social, emotional, executive functioning support, we're here to help. We do want to ensure that your learner is put on the path to potential and feels positive about the school year ahead. So we like to start with the caregiver intake to really get your lens, your perspective on how your child is performing and processing information. And then with that information, we then use the learner assessment as a tool to show you how your child's performing in executive functioning, cognitive measures, literacy, and or math. So we can see kind of baseline how your child is currently processing information, and then thus set recommendations and provide resources during the consultation and the learner profile discussion. So at that point, if we feel as if services are warranted, whether it be a couple of days a week for educational therapy or executive functioning coaching, it's all personalized and differentiated, but we have a chance to talk through that in the consultation by combining both the questionnaire and our findings during the assessment. Once you do move on to services, like I said, we have a diversity of services to meet your learner's needs. We want to ensure that we're truly personalizing the plan and the recommendations. So we have educational therapy, which is the use of the multisensory evidence-based methodologies. We have executive function coaching for all ages, all grades, to ensure that your learner has that preface to learning, that precursor that allows them to manage their time, to plan and prioritize, to organize their thoughts, their skills, their materials, to regulate their emotions in their body, really sustain attention. And we actually have an executive functioning boot camp specific for middle school and high school students. So if that's of interest to you, please reach out. Our boot camp starts the first Tuesday every month. The first one is going to be on organizational skills, and the next one's going to be on mindset and mindfulness. We also have academic tutoring and study skills and test prep, which is the generalization of those first two services. So once they have a really strong foundation to stand upon, we might recommend they go into some school-oriented coaching and tutoring to ensure that they can reach automaticity and independence with those skills. We have very, very flexible formats. We can see learners online, in person, individually, in pairs or small groups. Again, we have classes. We also coach parents and caregivers to ensure they feel supported and they can lead the instructional charge. And then we have an asynchronous model where we can assign assignments and meet with the caregiver to ensure that they're on track towards their potential. So lots of options. Of course, we want your learner to feel confident and successful, and there's many methods at which we can supply them with the support that they need and deserve. Okay, we're time for Q&A. Let me see if we have any questions in the chat. Nope, no questions. Okay, well, if you think of anything, you know exactly how to follow up with us. Feel free to reach out to us via email, call, or text. Follow us on socials and share as often as you feel fit to ensure that your friends and family know that we're here for them as well. We appreciate all of our panelists. Thank you for joining us, Alexis and Kendra, and sharing such valuable insight. Thank you, everybody. Join us next month when we'll talk through school meetings and what to expect with 504s, parent-teacher conferences, SSTs, and IEPs. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye.